What's up everybody, PR and VR. And so recently I started wanting to play around with Graffism and Kingspray Graffiti again, just because it's been kind of therapeutic. It's been something fun to do. And I got to thinking that I wanted to put out a very basic tutorial for anyone who is just getting their hands, into this and maybe want some quick tips that will benefit you in the process. So this is not by any means exhaustive. Again, I am not a graffiti artist. There are people out there who are really incredible to follow, and I'll leave some links in the description section of people you can go definitely check out and learn some stuff from. But this is going to be more of an entry level, basic, getting your fundamentals, and just really kind of teaching a little bit about can control and zones and a few other things that you might hear covered in other videos, you may not. Alright, so one of the first things I want to do is let's take you through the options, right? Spray cursor. For the sake of this, let's turn it on so I can show you depth and how that affects. We're going to keep the drip off. Drip is really cool if you want certain effects when you're spray painting, or if you want a more authentic feel. The closer you are to your piece, the more it's going to run. The further back, the longer it takes for it to run, but either way it will run. Again, if you want a more authentic experience, definitely recommend turning on the drip. Otherwise I wouldn't worry about that. I think a lot of this other stuff is pretty good. So now let's talk about setting your paints. Now real quick, I know Graffism is different than Kingspray. This is just kind of, like I said, this is really about the fundamentals, and they translate to both games. If you guys want a tutorial on how to set your paints in Graffism, let me know in the comment section, and if I get enough comments or likes for that, then I'll consider doing a video covering some of the elements of how Graffism works. In other words, how to set your paint, heights, the different items, you name it. Here real quick, you see my cursor. The further back it is, the lighter it is. You're seeing what it's covering, right? Closer it is, the more fine it is. You can get even finer. For the purpose of this, we're just gonna stick to standard. You have different caps that do different things, but for this, I'll let you guys play around with that, experience different things. The vast majority of what I play around with is just standard. I might do chisel if I want to hairpin white out a piece, or do little certain things, but outside of that, it's mostly standard I stick to. We're just going to do green, yellow, and red. So we got my green. We'll go here. We're going to pick yellow. Yellow as I can get it. This little arrow here will allow you to set it. And let's do a red. Set. So I want you to think about, from your nose, about where your nose is. So probably about where your belly button or your lower, wherever your waistband is. We're going to call this the green zone. So from my nose to my belly button, about my green zone. Okay. What's the relevance of this? What's the point of this? The point of this is you have the most control over your arm, your wrist, okay, angles in this area. And for some of you, you might have longer arms. It may be a little different. It's a great way for you to kind of figure out what works best for you. Where do you still have control? Where can you still get the maximum amount of control? Reason that's important is can control is when you're going to do certain unique parts of your lettering and all that, the wider out you get, the harder it is to maintain certain angles in certain forms. So we're going to say apply about top of your head to your groin area or so is your yellow. We'll go right around here. You still can maintain having your can face forward with very little issues. It's just a bit more challenging. So your yellow zone would be when you're having to come a little bit further out to work on your piece. And we'll say your red. Your red is where it gets to the point where you can't really maintain keeping that flat. Your wrist tends to want to go high. Whatever that is, that's your red zone. This is where you can no longer keep control of your wrist. And it can vary from person to person. But for this, we're just going to say, and obviously, another quick thing. I'm right-handed. I'm going to have a lot more control on this side, even in the red zone, than say this side. Right? Because now I'm crossing my arm over, and even my circle's going to look, you can't already tell, it looks funky. Step back. You can tell I have more control on this side versus that side where my arm is crossing over my body. So, why is this important? Because every time you're working on your piece, you want to stay in your green zone to your yellow zone. When you start getting into the red zone's great if you're just doing some painting and it doesn't matter, it's background or whatever. But when you're going to get into details, green's where you're going to get the detail. We'll call it the D. Right? It's where you're going to get the most detail. So, I'm not even going to do a fancy job of it. I'm just going to do a very fast job. So let's say I'm doing my spray can guy, right? I have a lot more control here. But now when I start getting into the top part of the can, his head, I'm starting to lose control here. So now I'm on my tippy toes, and then I still got another section I gotta add, and another section on top of that. It gets harder at the top than say in my control zone. If you're familiar with Kingspray, you can always grab an object, stand on your object, and you can regain control. This is a great way if you want to get more details and what have you. If you're doing a taller piece, right? You can always use this for height. We'll move you out the way real quick. Lower pieces, if you got bad knees, you can hit, You can hit the X button, but you see it takes you very low, so maybe consider standing on this. Right, and you can do whatever, and that's janky, but this is for demonstration purposes anyways. So just kind of get used to playing with it. You hit Y, it gives you your button layout if you're unsure. With your cursor on, of course, just work on trying to keep a steady line from one side of your body all the way to the other, as far out as you can reach. As far over here as you can. You notice I kind of just tilt my can. Try to keep it as consistent as you can. And for laughs and giggles, you can always just keep your wrist straight and see what it looks like. Gives you an idea how to work with keeping your wrist aligned wherever you're painting. So learning how to keep your lines consistent can help you just getting used to keeping your wrist flat, especially once you feel confident enough to take off the cursor. You know that you can keep your lines relatively consistent no matter where you are. Closer for finer lines. The game will only let you get so close before it just basically morphs into the wall. Being able to maintain consistent lines across, even coming in and out, wide, thin, wide, thin. Maybe give yourself a circle. Get used to just filling it. And eventually you get used to the feeling of where you are, how close you are as far as the can goes. You're never going to really be far back here unless you're trying to create some kind of splatter effect onto the wall. Like even that's too close. But that's another good thing to play around with, is just getting used to maintaining thinner lines when you're doing thin line work. Try to get consistently bigger, and maybe even trace between the lines or trace on the line, just to kind of get used to lining your work. If you're doing a piece across a wide surface like this, you notice the cursor shifts, changes. You always have to be mindful about what you're spraying on when you're going to make an item. So let's just say I'm going to make an A. All right, I'm just going to do a real simple A here. Depending where you're at is going to depend how it looks. And I tell you what, we'll make it a bubble A. Great. Fill it in. And we'll give it an outline. You can see wherever you're looking at it can really affect it. Let's do it real quick. So if you're doing line work, be mindful. This can all affect you, right? You have to be consistent all the way across. Give you guys a better example. Let's say I want to make a circle right here. You got your bevels. You can immediately see, even if I take a few steps back, it doesn't look the same. So kind of what I was referring to earlier about where you're placing your piece, you have to kind of be mindful of this if you want to keep your piece looking consistent. All right, well, let's talk about pressure, and let's talk about fading your work. Now, I did a YouTube short live where I did just one of the creatures I do typically, which is like this tentacle creature looking like it's busting out of a wall. So I'll take my chisel and just kind of create like a hole in the wall. Just kind of make some jagged edges. We want to get super creative. Maybe we even outline it for whatever. Yeah, whatever. I should have probably went like a gray, but who cares for demonstration purposes. And let's say I want to make it look like a tentacle creature is hiding in here. First things first, we'll give it some eyes in here, just so we know where its eyes are. Some real simple eyes. Something is in here looking at us. And then we'll loop it around here.
And you can do whatever you want. For this exercise, you can just fade colors together if you want. The reason I do this is just because it's entertaining, it's fun. Plus you feel like you really made something pretty unique. Just go right along because Bloody has to have.
We have to think about where our light source is going to be if we want to add a little bit of lightness to this, and where it's coming out of the dark. So let's try over here. If you're very gentle with your touch, you can create a very light spray. Or you can lower your pressure, which is what I more recommend. It's a little more forgiving. I know some people, again, want more of an authentic feel, so they'll just they've learned how to just kind of get really light with the pressure. Maybe come a little bit further back helps. Just, again, mind your piece. So I guess for, we'll say about here is where we want it. And we want to get darker towards the bottom. We want it to be just barely visible here, where it appears like there's something there. We want to be kind of as consistent as it can be. You could also try, what is it, feather duster? I believe that's also a good one. Just got to be careful because it does throw it down in blotches. But it can also help create a fade effect. Again, I really just stick to the standard. We want this light area here. Too dark right here. We would want this to be just slightly more visible. We would want this to be a little more visible, but it's all right. It's not the end of the world, especially for demonstration purposes. Just being real light. Give a little bit of a light. You can also fade a little bit into the area that would probably be exposed to the sun. Again, this is not by no means good. It's rushed. It's teaching. And like, again, I am not a graffiti artist. It's just a little something I picked up along the way. There are some really good guys out there. And I actually just saw one recently who I'll definitely share a link to his page. Who I think, I see he plays around with Kingspray. I see he plays around with Graffism. And I believe his name's Cnok. Cnok, if you're seeing this, shout out to you. I know you're in Poland, man. Rock on. So, again, fade. We don't want our eyes that bright, obviously. Wouldn't make sense. There has to be at least a little bit of it has to be somewhat in the shadow. So we just lightly kind of go around the eye. Soften it up. Okay. So it gives the impression that something is there, minus the white outline. I know that's booty. Oh, just gotta pressure back up. Like over here, you can see it mirrored on that wall over there. Who knows? It could be they just decided to mirror the wall or mirror the stage to make it, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Symmetrical, I guess. All right, I messed around enough. Either way. Oh. Well, there you go. If you do something on this wall, it's a
guys, if you're digging the video, please like, share, subscribe. Also, I'm going to leave 2 different links in the description section, one to Cnok and one to Ivan from The Walking Giant. Those are great guys to go follow and learn more from.